possible.
Very pleasant good morning and welcome to Apnu+Afc TV. My name is Randolph Pritchell. Thank you very much to those persons joining us in the diaspora, all of those countries that, we Guyanese have taken up residence. We want to thank you for joining us here. Those persons in the Caribbean, those persons in our Latin American region, of course, Guyanese right here at home. Welcome to Apnu+Afc TV on this beautiful Sunday morning. It is the 28th of June, 2020. We encourage you to share the stream, encourage you to like the page. We encourage you to follow us also on Instagram, follow us on YouTube as we continue to bring you the information and try to push through the noise being made on the other side. It is Sunday. 2 more days remaining in the wonderful month of June. June has been very interesting, a very interesting month as we continue to try to bring the regional and general elections to a close. As you may know, if you don't know, I will remind you though that the Caribbean Court of Justice is slated to hear that case taken before them by the PPP, hoping to overturn the ruling of the appeals court. And it's an appeal they took to the CCJ. The appeals court, of course, ruled that more votes in the Constitution means more valid votes, as it's articulated in the Representation of the People's Act, Section 96. That interpretation, of course, led or paved the way for the CEO to be able to use the gazetted order to take out those votes that are deemed invalid and present his report with votes that are only valid, as in keeping with our Constitution. The Court of Appeal handed down its ruling last week. That, of course, was then taken to the CCJ. We have maintained, though, that the Court of Appeal in matters concerning this particular nature should be the final court, because our Constitution says that, and of course the CCJ Act also limits the jurisdiction of the CCJ in those particular matters. Nevertheless, the PPP, the complainant Bar Jagdio and Irfan Ali, would have taken that case to the CCJ, hoping for them to rule, first of all, that the appeals court had no jurisdiction to hear the matter, and secondly, to set aside that ruling made by the two judges at the Court of Appeal. So we await. On Thursday last, the CCJ held their case management conference, where they went over a number of things that should happen in the hearing on Wednesday the 1st. They set out the timetable, put everything in place so everybody knows what should happen on Wednesday. New developments breaking overnight. We can put that picture up now in the Chronicle newspapers. We can put that picture up. Our operator can bring that up for us as I get the story. Right. As you can see there, and this is front page of the Chronicle newspaper. PPP's appeal doomed. Dr. Francis Alexis, Queen's Counsel, says PPP's appeal at CCJ has no real prospect of success. Right? And I'm going to go into that story for you. This is breaking overnight. The Grenadian Queen's Counsel, Dr. Francis Alexis, one of the Caribbean's leading authority on constitutional law, said not only was the Court of Appeal right in ruling that Guyana's president ought to be elected based on valid vote in accordance with the Constitution and electoral laws of the country, but there can be no challenge to this decision, even at the level of the CCJ. To do so would be to overrule the constitutional provisions provided for in Article 177(4) and 162(1)(b) of the Constitution. On that basis, he said that the application filed by the People's Progressive Party for special leave to appeal the decision of the Court of Appeal should not be granted. The Queen's Counsel, whilst highlighting that the Court of Appeal was absolutely correct in interpreting more votes in Article 177(2)(b) as meaning more valid votes. And of course, this idea of more valid votes speaks to the Representation of the People's Act, Section 96. Article 177(4) makes the decision of the interpretation of 177(2)(b) of the Constitution final. And I want you to understand 177(4) provides expressly that the Court of Appeal shall be or shall have exclusive jurisdiction to hear matters of any question as it relates to the validity of an election of a president, insofar that that question depends on the qualifications of any person or the interpretation of the Constitution. And it gives the Court of Appeal exclusive, the word exclusive jurisdiction. So there you have it, the Queen's Counsel, one of the most reputable minds on constitutional law in the Caribbean, stating his opinion there on the case taken before the CCJ, because that is what the nation is waiting on. That is where all eyes will be trained on Wednesday to see what will come out of that, what will happen as those oral and written submissions are presented in the Court of Appeal. You must remember, during the case management session on conference, it was said that, of course, they have not made any decision on jurisdiction, and that will be made after the oral and written submissions. And they also, as Mr. Mendez, the senior counsel representing the PPP's interests, wanted them to do, to have them let Mr. Lowenfield rescind his final report. They made it very clear that their job at that particular forum was not to overturn anything that Mr. Lowenfield would have done, and if they want to present a case that the order that was handed down by the appeals court was broken, and Mr. Lowenfield was not supposed to present a report, they can present that argument on Wednesday coming. So I know a lot of these things may seem like a lot of legalese language, and persons may not understand or follow exactly what is happening. So in the simplest terms, we want to ensure, and that's what I like to do on the morning show here, persons can relate to what is happening in their country, because as you know, relating with persons in the street where you hear the same thing over and over, we just want this thing to be finished. We can't necessarily follow all of what is happening, especially as the battle takes on a different color in the judiciary. And persons find it hard to keep up with all of the legal terms and all of the ins and outs of the legal battle and proceedings happening. Guyanese want to know that, you know what, this thing is over. When will it be over? When will they swear in our president? That's the question that they ask you when you see them in the street. We have to go through this battle. We have to wage the battle in the judiciary at this point in time. So it is unavoidable. So you might hear a lot of legal language, but the meat of the issue is, Guyanese and friends, that we are right now at the place where the law is very clear. And I'll tell you, anybody, the layman can tell you that more votes mean more valid votes. I think that message has gone through, that more votes mean more valid votes. And that is law, that is in our Constitution. Right? The Representation of the People Act speaks about adding up the valid votes. Our Constitution speaks about electing persons on more votes. It was just to reconcile those two terms and ensure that we understand that one means the same thing. Right? So, more votes means more valid votes. It's marrying the two terms now, so everybody is clear. And because what happens, especially with legal proceedings, and I've expressed this frustration many times, that the framers of constitutions and the people who write these legal documents that are intended to govern our affairs, for some particular reason, use very loose language. And when you have very loose language, people tend to interpret it in their own way and twist it and turn it. So this is why we are constantly in the court for a judge or somebody to interpret what the framer of that particular piece of legislation meant. I would be really happy if those language they were a little clearer, a little more direct. But it is what it is. Sometimes you have loose language that can be interpreted both ways. So it is essential that we clarify. We took it to the Court of Appeals because I will tell you this. We went into a national recount, an audit of boxes. Unfortunately, the statement of recounts that we have that were created for this process, it had more valid votes cast on it. And I want us to understand what happened and why the PPP will hold on to the fact that everything that came out of the box was valid. This is their position. That everything that came out of those boxes, it was valid because the statement of recounts had the heading, more valid votes cast. This is the row for you to put in all of what you found in the box. It was unfortunately labeled more valid votes. We had said in the beginning that we oppose the fact that this statement of recount says more valid votes because essentially you're putting everything that comes out of the box under that heading of valid votes, which was incorrect. Everything that came out of the box was not valid. But unfortunately, the process in the name of expediency went forward, and the statements of recounts, they were not changed. They still had the heading, and this is what you see on the Facebook pages of the PPP and their surrogates. They're putting up statements of recounts and highlighting the part that says more valid votes cast. When we know that heading on the statement of recount is not the more valid votes, it's just all the votes that came out of the box. And as I said, it's unfortunate that it had that heading on it. But we maintained that not everything that came out of the box and written down next on that statement of recount would be deemed valid because we had another part of the process. We had the observation. The observation reports said that although 50 votes came out of this box, 25 of them we can't validate. Although 50 votes are labeled valid votes on the statements of recount, it is written in next to the word more valid votes. The observation report said 25 of them we can't reconcile because there are no oath of identification or they weren't stamped. Some other reason. There are many reasons listed in the gazetted order or many various criteria so they can use to verify the vote. So again, it was unfortunate. So this is exactly why we had to go to the appeals court. The Evelyn Davis case was pivotal because the PPP were attempting to tell you Guyanese that process that we went through at the conference center was for nothing. And that everything that came out of the box and unfortunately written next to the words more valid votes cast had to be counted as valid votes. So all of the observation reports should be thrown through the window. And everything that came out should be deemed valid. And this is why the Evelyn Davis case at the appeals court was so pivotal. Because we needed a definition, a clear interpretation of the words more votes cast. And the idea that it meant more valid votes now means that you have to figure out a way to deem it valid Fortunately, the recount order already did that. The recount order already set out all of the criteria that had to be met so that a vote or a ballot can be deemed valid. So this is where we are again, and I just wanted to break that down so that the average person understands. And this is why we went to the appeals court. The appeals court ruled that you had to determine validity. And the ruling did not stop short and say more votes mean more valid votes. It said more votes mean more valid votes in keeping with the gazetted order, in keeping with what was set out in the gazetted order. So you had a guideline to do your quality assessment, whether or not this thing was valid. So that meant essentially that the CEO had a clear path now to determining validity and only putting those that met the criteria for validity in his final report. So that, of course, meant that the Apnu+Afc, given the new calculation, given the valid votes, not just everything that came out the box, but the valid ones, were the clear winners by 1 seat. The combined opposition gaining 32 seats, the Apnu+Afc 33 seats. Some 115 votes were deemed invalid. 115,000, sorry. 115,000 votes were deemed invalid. That, of course, was broken down into some 50-something thousand of our votes, the Apnu+Afc. Votes for the combined opposition, some votes from the PVP. In doing so, the Apnu+Afc ended up losing a region that they would have won if we just counted all the votes, Region 8. And we keep reminding you that so that persons know when they come to you. As I said before, don't let people come to you. Don't come wrong funny. So we are now at the court of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and the opinion expressed by Dr. Francis Alexis is very clear. As I said, he's one of the foremost minds on constitutional law in the Caribbean, and he would have expressed that this case is doomed. The appeal is doomed. And that one, the Caribbean Court has no jurisdiction in this matter, and two, that more votes should mean more valid votes. As my erudite friend, Mr. Nandalal, will readily remind you, that of course, more votes mean more valid votes. It can't mean more invalid votes. That the framers of the Constitution couldn't envision the president being elected on an illegality. He will readily remind you that, and we have him saying that. So, the fact that, one, the court doesn't have jurisdiction, and two, that it is obviously not even a case of law, but a case of basic common sense that more votes have to be more valid votes, tells you about the chances of success of this appeal at the CCJ. At Guyanese, we continue to wait, and we continue to watch. We know that there are forces at play, as we continue to mention, that are beyond what we're seeing in our own country. And their tentacles and their hands that are moving parts and trying to influence the process from afar. But we will continue to watch, and we will continue to be vigilant, and we will continue to be resolute that our sovereignty must be respected. Our sovereignty must be respected. Our constitution must be respected. Guyanese, our people must be respected. And I like the passion that our Prime Minister speaks on this matter with. I like the passion with which he speaks on the fact that outside forces are trying to influence the outcome of our elections. And this is a worrying trend, especially in this region. The Caribbean Latin American region, we've seen the influence of bigger forces trying to manipulate and ensure that they have whatever change they want to impose. Well, Guyanese, I think, as I said before, Guyanese are sick of it. They're sick of the interference. But we will continue to watch, we will continue to listen. On this Sunday morning, 2 more days before the end of the month of June. You know, the month of June is normally the month of weddings and the month of brides. I know that the COVID measures would have prevented a lot of that from happening. But we continue, and of course the elections season has dragged on so long. And as we know, Guyanese just want this to be over. We are wishing also for an expedient conclusion to this process after the CCJ would have ruled. Then the chairperson of GCOM has to now consider that report given to her by our CEO and make a declaration on the March 2nd election and allow this country to move forward. There is a clear winner. On the calculation of valid votes, there is a clear winner. It is inconceivable that learned people want you to take all the votes out of the box and disregard the fraud and disregard the invalid votes and just count everything. As I said, there's a clear winner when you calculate the valid votes, and that's the APNU-AFC. We'll continue to maintain that. We'll continue to maintain that the law is on our side. We'll continue to maintain that we are acting within the confines of the law. We also will continue to ask our supporters to stay calm. We also will continue to ask our supporters to act within the confines of the law. And be strong and be resolute. And know that your leaders are doing what they're supposed to do to ensure that you are represented, ensure that your will is represented. And that we will not accept an injustice, we will not accept illegality and fraudulent votes, invalid votes, to be the basis on which we elect our president. Valid votes. On this Sunday morning, we don't want to keep you much long. We thank you very much. We have some interesting shows coming up today. This Sunday, we will be back at 12 o'clock to bring you more information as to what is happening. Again, before we go, that breaking information, Grenadian Queen's Council, Dr. Francis Alexis, the Caribbean's leading authority on constitutional law, giving his opinion on the CCJ case that should be heard on Wednesday, Wednesday the 1st, seeking to throw out the Court of Appeals ruling that more votes mean more valid votes, and seeking to have an opinion on whether or not the Court of Appeal had the jurisdiction to hear the matter. This is the case taken to them by the PPP. They are now appealing that Court of Appeal thing at the CCJ. Dr. Francis Alexis says basically that the PPP's appeal is doomed. And this is not just anybody. This is the foremost leading Caribbean authority on constitutional law. Grenadian Queen's Council, not Senior Council, Dr. Francis Alexis. So that you can get that, you can see that article in the Chronicle newspapers, its front page. You can go check out all of what he said. Again, mind you, of course, that the legalese language that you see, don't be daunted. Just understand that our Constitution says that the appeals court is the final court. And the more votes mean more valid votes. So at the end of the day, this matter should have been left right there at the appeals court, according to according to the law and according to the opinion of the Queen's Counsel, Dr. Francis Alexis. So on that note, we want to say thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for being a part of the Apnu+Afc TV family. We want you to continue to be here, continue to share the live. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube. Let your friends and family. It's easy to give this page a like. Just click the like button. So every time we have a show, you'll get a notification on your phone. Every time we go live, your phone will have a little notification, so you know that Apnu+Afc is live and the information is coming to you hot off the press. So thank you very much. My name is Randolph Critchlow. Do join us here again at 12 noon.